Hi, this is Neil Walters with website-garden.com, and in this video I want to give you a quick update on all the different fields that you can use when you create a task. So on the left menu here, the first thing at the top is called Current Task, which is this screen. And just to remind you, the top section of it is called Service and Paid Task, and that's when you actually hire a freelancer to do the work for you from our crew of freelancers, or if you buy a service, which means people have pre-canned services out there and you want to buy one of those. And so that's how you keep track of progress on those. Below that, from here on down, is where you work with your own internal task workers, like yourself and your employees or people you've contracted with full time and that you pay like weekly or whatever. So at the top here, you have two choices: add a regular task, which is for your internal workers or your task workers, and add a paid task, which is for the freelancers. So there is a cost when you add a paid task, of course, because you're going to have to pay that person. If you add a regular task, there's no cost for that. So I'm going to click Add Regular Task. And like here, I say, we have a bug, fix ABC, whatever it is. Okay, and here you can pick the project. And we have another screen where you can set up your project. So usually you might have 2 or 3 or 4 of these, maybe more. And so let's say this is for website garden support. And then the status, I just leave that defaulted to unstarted. Icebox is for later if you want to move the task to kind of like a holding tank where you don't want it to appear on the screen and then you want to bring it back. That's what the icebox is for. So that's just a check if you want it in the icebox or not in the icebox. So rarely are you going to use that probably. The pin to date is a feature we added that instead of letting the task float up and down on the schedule where you can drag and drop them, it actually pins it to like being required on a certain date. So I'll see if I can explain that more either later in this video or in a separate video. Now these two fields were recently added: action required date 1 and 2. In your own internal company, these are probably not going to be used very often, but recently I decided that this software could be used by a church or a synagogue, and we were dealing with volunteers, right? So like we had our finance committee and we added a task for the finance committee and we assigned it to a person. So this is where you assign it to a person. I'll just assign it to my other email here. And that person needs to do something on the task by this date. And if he doesn't, he's going to get a reminder, like an email or a notification up here under these notifications. So that's what that's for. So obviously you just put a date in there, and there's like the first date is like a warning, and maybe the second date is more critical. Then you pick the story type, which is kind of it's tied to what we call a workflow. And we recently added the workflow capability. So for example, oh, I'm on my dev system here, so this is not quite the same as my production. So let's just call it a software bug. But for example, if you had a dev and a production system, you might have software bug dev/prod, and then you actually have different buttons you click when the product is delivered to dev, when it's QA'd and tested in dev, and then there's another button to click when they move it to production, and then there's another button to click when they actually verify that it's in production okay. So you can set up your own workflows, but that'll be another video. So I'm just going to put software bug. Points is basically 3 choices right now. You have under 4 hours, 5 to 16 hours, or over 16 hours. So half a day, like a day to day and a half, or over 2 days. And if your task is over 2 days, then basically, in my opinion, you should split it into smaller tasks. Because a couple of reasons is, number one is you need to keep track of your task. And to me, they should just be as small as possible, but they also need to make sense. And then also, I think your team members are a lot happier when they deal with little small tasks. Like if they see that they got 2 or 3 tasks done per day, I think people are happier and they feel like they accomplished more actually. So that's what that is. So I'll say under 4 hours. Your team is, okay, this is, it's different than projects. So again, like for our synagogue, we had a finance and a marketing team. So let's say this is for the finance team. And what that means is only people on the finance team will see this task. And I'll show you how that works, but I have to go to another screen. This is who you assign it to. And you can add your own task workers on another screen. Basically, depending on what degree of subscription you have is how many task workers you can add. And then position means, okay, so you have the choice of place at start, place at end, place after 5, 10, 15, or 20 tasks. So like if you want it to be done like as soon as possible, that would be place at start. If you think, well, I've got some other tasks I know I'm working on now and I want them to finish them first, I'm going to say place it after 5 tasks. And I'll show you how that works on the next screen. This is where you put your wonderful description, fix the bug in the blah, blah, blah screen. And you can add an image here. We just added that feature actually today. And we're changing one thing right now where you can actually just paste the picture right in here. That should be done in about, hopefully within an hour. Then you can have multiple activities. And the activities are just either more details or that's where you can actually place a picture. So for example, this is my Snagit screen. So I'm just going to do a Control A for copy here, and then I come over here and hit paste, and you see it added the image there. I could also hit the paperclip and upload the image, and it would have the actual image name, but when I paste it, it's just going to create a fake name like image.png. And then I can add more activities, like I could say, see the picture below or what the bug says. Okay. And I can have as many activities as I want. I can also say here, reply needed. So that means that the person who's working on this task should reply to me if they have questions, or maybe it's a question I have for them. So usually if I have a question, then I would check reply needed. Like let me give you an example. I'd say here, add activity, can you finish this by Friday before our board meeting or something like that. And so I want to be notified when he answers me. So that's why I'm going to say reply needed. And then I'm going to get the notification up here, which you still kind of have to go check that. But anyway. Okay, so you can also have subtasks. I don't use that often, but like you say you had a task that was, for example, 16 hours, and you just wanted to break it into part 1, part 2, part 3, you could add subtasks for that. And then a blocker is if you it's either blocked by another task. You can paste the link to the other task here, or you can just say awaiting on receipt of new software before we can begin. You can just type that in, and I'm going to click save. Now these two buttons here, stay on page after add. Well, there have been times where I wanted to edit it more, but I just wanted to make sure it was saved. So in that case, I would just check that box, and then after I save it, I'm still on the same page. Then if I'm adding a series of tasks, sometimes like task 2 will be dependent on task 1, task 3 will be dependent on task 2. So in that case, this is my first task, so I wouldn't use this. But if I added 3 tasks, maybe my second task, I would check this to say it's blocked by the first task. Okay, so now I'm going to click save, and we're going to go see what this looks like. Okay, so again, at the top here, we have our service and paid task. And since we're not dealing with that today, we can collapse that. Here you have the tasks that need to be done like this week. And again, this all has to do with velocity, which is how many tasks your team is doing per week, or how many units of work, not how many tasks. It's based on that number you entered, whether it was under 4 hours, 4 to whatever it was, a day and a half, or more than a day and a half. It's based on that number. And so that basically then decides how many tasks you can do a week. And as you scroll down, you can see here then my tasks have been laid out all the way through June 13th of next year. Okay, and if I want to change that velocity and say, well, this is my test system, my real velocity is, say, 15. Well, now, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you see it's only going out to November 15th this year now because we're getting more done every week. And now here you see like, okay, this week, these are all our tasks. So now in this video earlier, I just created this bug. So you see that icon there on the left is the bug icon. So we have like maybe 5 or 6 different types of icons here. This is a chore. I think this is a software release. I forget what that one is, a SEO chore maybe. And so here's the bug we just added. And here it says it's new, and the question mark says it needs a reply. So see right there, if I'm looking through this list and I see the little red question marks, oh, I'm like, oh, somebody's maybe waiting for me to reply, and I can open it and reply to them that way. This is my blocker. This little red dot here says it's waiting. So I know if it's blocked on something, I could just go on to the next task. Now, of course, when I saved it, I said save it after 5 tasks. So see, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and it made it the 5th one actually. But if I say, no, it's more important, all I got to do is slide it up, say here between number 2 and 3. And so that's how easy it is to reprioritize your tasks. You just basically move them around like this. And then when you refresh the page, they should have little icons on them showing that they got moved. Okay, that didn't, oh, let me go back to the bigger velocity. Okay, I don't see the icon that showed it got moved up or down, but that should be there. The other icon you see here is if it's new or if it's been modified. So like if this guy or rest modified the task, I might want to read it to see like what changed. Why did he modify it? This little number in this column is that units of work. So a 1 is under 4 hours, and again a 2 was 4 to 12 hours, and a 3 was over 12 hours. So you see most of my tasks here were 1s, but occasionally I've got a 2 or a 3. So that's the size of the task. So let's look at what normally happens. If this was assigned to me, I would click the task, and like maybe now the blocker has been resolved, so I can just come over here and delete the blocker. And I don't want to delete the task though. What I want to do is start the task. So I'm going to click this little start button right here. And that basically changes the status from unstarted to started. And so now that it's started, you see here bug fix ABC just says started. So now as a programmer, I go do the work, and then when I'm done, I come back here and I say, okay, I'm done. So I'm going to say, well, okay, sorry. Right now, I actually assigned this to my other ID. So if it was me, I'm Neil Walters SEO, not Neil Walters Sprynet. So let me change that again. The person who's working on it will have special buttons. Now anyone can actually open the task and change it. Let me show you that. I mean, we're assuming we're working on a small team where we all trust each other. So a person can come in here and actually change the status in the drop-down list. But here, you see I now have the finish button. Whereas when it was assigned to my other Neil Walters, it didn't have the finish button there. So it was assumed that somebody else was working on it and they would finish it. But now that it's assigned to me, I'm the one that needs to finish it. So I go do my programming, whatever, and then I click finish here. And it just changes to the next status. And now it says deliver. So deliver typically means like I deployed it to the production system or the dev system or something like that. And let me show you one more thing down here. There is actually a section here called add fulfillment. So what you could do is you could say, here is the new screen image after I fixed the bug. And then you would go back, say, to your image, your Snagit program, you paste your image in and you click save on that. Now that didn't change the status yet, but I still go up here now and I say, okay, now I delivered it. Okay, so now that it's delivered, I'm also the owner of the system, so I'm the one that approves it or rejects it. So I go look at that page, I do my testing, whatever, and then I either reject or I approve. In this case, I approve. And I can actually approve it, fully approve, or I can say, well, I approve it, but I want to create one new task with a bug and then have a backlink or blocker back to this original task. Or I can approve, but create a new task with the blocker text below. And I could say, it worked 99%, but please fix the spelling of something, something, whatever. Okay, but I'm just going to do a normal approval on this, and I'm going to click submit. So now the screen is refreshed and we see your bug fix ABC and it now says approved. At this point, there's no more buttons because the task is basically done. And if I click on it again, it looks the same on the inside. If I have more questions, or I can still add activities and things like that inside of it. And, technically you could make it unapproved here if you want to, but normally once it's approved, it's done and you don't have to worry about it anymore. It's got a slightly different color. And normally the approved ones will be at the top of the list. But here, earlier I was talking to you about having a pen date. So like when I open this task, this is called pin to date right here, and we left it blank. But let's go look at this one called test hours and see it was pinned to May 19th, which is now like 3 months ago. But basically that's why it shows May 19th on here. And that's why it's red also, because that date has passed and this task still hasn't been started. Same thing with this one, June 4th. The task was pinned to that date and was never started. So those will appear actually first, and then your approved task, and then all the other ones that you're working on, whether they're started or finished or whatever various state they are. Okay, I didn't mean for this video to be like 16 minutes long, so I will basically record other ideas and other videos to keep the videos as short as possible for training purposes. So thanks, this has been Neil, and I'll see you in the next video.